And away we go on a Thursday edition of the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. Hanging with you until 3 o'clock. Of course, you can find us over on Twitter. You can stream us over there at Chico Show CLE. We stream each and every day, Monday through Friday, 1 until 3 on Twitter. Also, go over to YouTube and type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you will be all set to go. Michael Bohm is here. Hello, Bohm. Good morning, Bohm, or good afternoon, Bohm, I should say. For you, I usually think it's good morning because I don't know how much of a morning person you are, so it's usually afternoon when you're.
I am the polar opposite of a morning person. You're dead on, Chico. So, yeah, you could. This is basically my morning. I feel like I did just wake up.
But in fairness to you, you do work late at night, and I'm familiar with the job that you have late. So it's taxing. So I know that you've got to rest up and gird up your loins for the afternoon show here with me.
I try to get my 6 hours.
We have a gal that does her lunchtime walking, and I told her yesterday that we can't start the show until she walks by. And I think she thought I was joking. I was mostly serious. And she just walked by now, and I was like, well, okay, that's one warning. We can't.
Folks, Chico does, in fact, have game.
Oh, no, Boom. That's not what that was. I don't even know if she's married or something. No. Don't listen to him. That's not what that was about. We just see her every day. You know
we do.
Every day she walks by the studio.
Multiple times.
And she's usually on the phone and whatever. And so I just made the joke that, from now on, if we don't see you walk by. Boom, would you? All right. We're going to talk a little sports today. I hope you don't mind. 216-626-7901. That number again, 216-626-7901. Also, you can tweet at me, my personal Twitter, at BigPlayChico. Coming up in a bit, coming up at 1:20, I'm looking forward to this. I miss this guy terribly. So as long as I've been, well, I shouldn't say as long as I've been, but for the last, say, 4 or 5 years in doing radio and being on the air, and I, obviously anybody who knows me knows I cover the Buckeyes. I love Ohio State, went there, all that baloney. But Bill Landis was always like my go-to guy. He was with The Athletic. Now he's with Rivals. He's going to join us at 1:20. But again, like Bohm, last year, they call it being on the beach. So I was on the beach for the fall football season, meaning I wasn't working. And so college football is going on, Ohio State's going on, and I'm missing my weekly, get-togethers with Bill Landis. So we're going to be able to do that again this fall. But the real reason I want to bring on Bill, I mean, we'll talk a little bit of Buckeyes and, Kyle McCord versus Devin Brown and, who's looking good, and so Bohm can, drool and go, have a nice dream tonight.
So, Bill, who should I gush over this year?
So, Bill, who should Bohm have just unrealistic expectations for? He thinks that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to catch 258 balls for 3,200 yards, and he's going to score about 47 touchdowns. You think that's realistic?
If there's anyone who could be a 3,000-yard receiver, it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
He's a stud. He's going to be, he already is. And when you hear guys, put it this way, when you hear guys like Joel Klatt, among others, I mean, everybody's been saying it, like the analysts, that, this guy's ready to play on Sunday. If he was draft eligible, he would have been a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick, I think. But he wasn't draft eligible.
Even in this year's draft class where you didn't see the first receiver go off the board until pick 20?
But that's my point, is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is considered like, this guy could, he's that talented. And, the bloodlines certainly don't hurt Marvin Harrison Sr., except this Marvin Harrison is like 6'4", extremely strong, works his ass off. It's one of those things when the perfect storm happens. Look at Bohm starting to drool. Somebody get Bohm a bib or something. When everything comes together and you have a just an incredibly athletic young man, great hands, great route runner, great bloodlines, and then, like I said, the work ethic is off the charts. You just kind of, whoa.
I think it's honestly astounding that he was the third. He was the lowest ranked wide receiver in Ohio State's class that year, behind Emeka Ibuka and Jaden Ballard. And maybe Kyle McCord was holding him back, Chico.
I was going to say Kyle McCord was his high school quarterback in Philadelphia. Yeah, we'll have to pose that. But again, the real reason I wanted Bill Landis on today is I just came across this report last week, and I'm going to be full disclosure here. With the TV deals and the conference realignment, I mean, it's really tough to keep track of it all. Like USC and UCLA's coming, but there could be more, and I think there will be more. I think eventually, we've kind of talked about the whole AFC, NFC type college football setup. I think that's going to happen. But you may remember, and you may have forgotten, because there's so much going on in our world, and with college football, it happens fast and furious. But Kevin Warren, who was the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, and remember in 2020, during the COVID year, he didn't want to play. He didn't really seem, first of all, I don't think any of the ADs or presidents really liked the guy. Nobody really trusted him. Nobody really liked him. He seemed like he was swimming. And he didn't really understand how things worked and whatever, and it was a mess. So he is now the president and CEO, I think, or president of the Chicago Bears, and, he gets reunited with Justin Fields. Ironically enough, while Kevin Warren was telling folks, we ain't playing, Justin Fields is on Good Morning America, or whatever it was, going, no, we need to play. Remember, it was him and Burrow, right? Was it Joe Burrow? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I definitely remember Fields. Now, I just think it was it was so pompous of Kevin Warren to think they were setting a precedent and they were being progressive by canceling things. And it just felt like it all backfired in his face.
Well, things were so crazy in 2020 for obvious reasons. I mean, everybody has their own stories, and I almost feel I was thinking about this this morning after I was able to confirm Bill last night. It's almost like 2020. There's going to be some sort of movie made on. And I mean, not just the COVID stuff. I mean, I'm saying just the Big Ten, and I want a behind the scenes of how the 2020 Big Ten season came together and then played out. Because I guarantee you Ohio State has all kinds of recorded conversations, footage, all sorts of stuff that would blow our minds.
Can we get a Disney movie for that too?
Yeah. I mean, what if I told you there was a commissioner who had absolutely no clue what he was doing when taking over the Big Ten Conference? And then,
what if I told you?
What if I told you? No, I feel like there's so much that we don't know, and we know a lot already. Like I said, I mean, that's the meat and potatoes. Kevin Warren's like, we ain't playing. Players, including Justin Fields, going on. I mean, Good Morning America, for God's sake. Not the local Columbus station, not going on, WBNS Channel 10. He's going on Good Morning America national show with Joey Burrow and others going, we got to play. We need to play. Let's go. And so eventually, they decide they're gonna do it, and they somehow navigated through the season. So it was the Wild West. I mean, pretty much every conference did their own thing, which is still an issue with the NCAA, because until you get one voice, you're going to have this all the time. But in a situation like 2020, my God, it was like, well, sir, are you playing? I don't know. We'll let you know. It was crazy. Michigan canceled the Ohio State-Michigan game. Now, okay, I know it was COVID-related, but you also wonder, like, did they – because of that, Bohm, that's why the streak is even longer now for Ryan Day, because 2019 is the last time they won, right? It's just I don't know. I feel like a lot of stuff went down that we don't know about. And I'm telling you right now, and I know Bill Landis is joining us. We're going to get to him in just a moment. But I feel like there is a movie, maybe not a movie, but like a documentary that can be made on how the 2020, just the Big Ten season. Now, you want to do entire college football. I think each conference, each of the Power Fives could probably do their own. But like the Big Ten, I feel like the SEC, like Alabama was just doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. And this isn't an indictment necessarily on any one person, but it was that crazy. But my point is, Kevin Warren was like leading the charge. You want somebody in that position. You feel like, okay, we've got a leader. We got a guy that knows what he's doing. And, well, no, Kevin Warren didn't really fit that bill. And I just feel like there's somewhere in a closet, there's video, there's tape conversations that will just blow our minds when it comes to how the 2020 season developed and actually happened. But I mentioned Kevin Warren then to mention him now. Remember the deals, the mega, I don't know, $7 billion, whatever it was, dollar deal that the Big Ten had supposedly finalized with NBC, CBS, and Fox, right? Okay. Well, apparently that wasn't quite the case. We're finding out now that Tony Petitti, who's the new Big Ten commissioner after Kevin Warren left for the Bears, is like, yeah, you know what? They're really these things weren't finalized. So now Tony Petitti and the rest of the Big Ten are trying to clean up what Kevin Warren couldn't finish up or didn't finish up or wouldn't finish up. I tell you what, we got Bill Landis ready right now. Let's bring him in right now. We got Bill Landis from Rivals. As I said, Bill, I don't know if you heard it coming in, but I kind of, with what happened last year for me, I was quote unquote on the beach, as they say, for the fall season. So I was telling Bohm and everybody else, like, I missed those weekly conversations talking Buckeyes with you. So it is great to track you down again. Again, you're doing great stuff with Rivals, and you got a couple podcasts too that you're involved in. Before we get any further.
Yeah, it's called. First of all, I'm glad to be back with you too. I missed those conversations during the fall as well. But yeah, it's called The Podcast, which I guess when it was named, people didn't think about how difficult it might be to search for. If you just type in The Podcast, a lot of different options pop up. But it is a podcast about Ohio State football. It's myself and Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham, and we have something there every day. So you can find it on YouTube if you search The Podcast Ohio State.
And I'll give a shameless plug myself, but I'm a subscriber to Rivals. I love it. I mean, you get so much in-depth stuff like this time of the year. You know, what's going on with recruiting. You know, what's the roster looking like, you know, early and all that sort of thing. So I strongly encourage you, if you're not already, go to Rivals, be a subscriber. It is well worth the money spent. All right, that said, Bill, I want to pick up with you where I left off there, because as much as I do want to touch on Ohio State, and we will towards the end of this, I was kind of stunned. Like, admittedly, I didn't know if it was one of those things where, you know what, I wasn't paying attention, because things happen so fast and furious in the college football world and everything in the world recently, where it's like, I can't remember if this team is affiliated with that team and how they're doing. Like, it's just, it's gotten crazy. So when I read the story that Kevin Warren left and the deals weren't finalized with like NBC, CBS, and Fox, I'm going, did I miss that? Or, because that's pretty big news. Can you pick it up from there? And were you under the impression, you and some of your colleagues that cover this on a regular basis, were you under the impression that was a done deal before he left.
Yeah, for sure. Like some kickoff times had been announced prior to that, and like we're all sort of getting used to seeing the NBC and CBS logos and some of these graphics for Big Ten kickoff times, and it never crossed my mind that the deals weren't done yet. And I will say, having dealt with college athletics for like a decade now, and like coaches contracts and stuff like that, plenty of coaches will start working without like the formalized contract. They'll start working with like an MOU done, like all the terms are accepted but the formal contract's not flushed out, but they'll still start working. And I suppose that could be what's happened with television contracts. I won't pretend to know that, but when I saw that story pop up, I was like, wait, what do you mean they're not done? Like the season is in 3 months and we're announcing kickoff times, and there are seemingly pretty important points to get ironed out before that would happen. So I was pretty stunned by that. My larger thought on it is that it'll be fine and get figured out. But I did think it was a nice window into how things were handled with Kevin Warren as the commissioner of the Big Ten, and that is to say that things were communicated quite poorly, I think, throughout his tenure.
I mean, I think somebody, I said it half jokingly, but I really think somebody could have something if they wanted to make a documentary on the 2020 season on how the Big Ten came together, and conversations that we've never heard, video footage that we've never heard, because I guarantee you there's a lot of stuff that went down that year that's just crazy.
Yeah, we got some of that stuff, and I mean, like very little. When we did like records requests for text messages and emails and things like that, these are savvy people. I think they know to not have much of those conversations via email or via text messages that can be FOIA'd. So there's still a lot there to unearth, I think, and I too am hopeful that someday maybe we can learn a little more about what happened there. But I think like if Kevin Warren handled a $7 billion television contract this way, which is seemingly operating in secret and and to some extent and giving things away that he wasn't empowered to give away, like you can only imagine how things happened when they were trying to figure out whether or not they were going to play back in 2020 when he was new on the job and still figuring out how things worked. So the disjointedness of that time, I think, got a little more clarity 2 or 3 years down the road here now that we know how this was handled.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because I'm reading from one of the articles talking about it. It says instead, Tony Petitti, the new commissioner of the Big Ten, is engaged in significant, in quotes, horse trading, according to multiple sources, to get the deals finished. It's just it's kind of mind-boggling. But when it's all said and done, give us an idea of, because it almost feels like this season and kind of how everything's coming together almost feels like a microcosm, a foreshadow, whatever, of what we're to expect as far as the NCAA, as far as college football. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, like people are kind of flying by the seat of their pants here, which is I think is what's happened with a lot of changes across college football, whether it's realignment, these mega television deals, NIL. I don't think people are keeping in mind like the down the road consequences of the decisions that they're making now. And I think that's maybe evident in this television deal when you think about the fact that nobody in the Big Ten wants to play November night games, but now NBC is expecting an inventory of November night games. And I think maybe the best way now moving forward to make both sides happy is that the Big Ten is going to have to add more teams. They're going to have to add more West Coast based teams that can play at night in November in conditions that aren't potentially frigid or snowing. And I prior to knowing all this, I was sort of like, okay, realignment or additions to the conference maybe look a little more on the back burner right now. But now knowing what like NBC expects, and there's a lot of money at stake, and the Big Ten has to deliver that inventory, and like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State are only going to play ball so much. I think that will reignite those fires to add more West Coast based teams to the Big Ten.
I mean, isn't that to go back to, I don't think it was that long ago when Gene Smith made the comment about, I think it was with USC and UCLA coming in, that it'll be nice to have, some partners to carry the water. I think that's essentially what he was talking about. I think he was chastised a little bit for it. But, I mean, if you think about it, you're right. Like Ohio State's the Big Ten. So if I'm NBC, well, I'm not It's not like I'm scrambling to put Rutgers in prime time. So Ohio State's going to have to lead the charge, but how many night games can you give them? And I think Gene was probably thinking, wow, it'll be nice to have USC take some of those and UCLA to take some of those, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's not the way that I really took it at the time, but I think now looking back, knowing what we know now, that is definitely part of it. I think part of it too is they're just brands that carry a lot of weight. If they're trying to position themselves, the Big Ten, on equal footing with the SEC, with the SEC adding Texas and Oklahoma, and they're all sort of trying to shape the future of college football together. I think Ohio State felt like it needed a couple other heavy hitters in the room besides itself and Michigan and maybe Penn State. I think having USC at that table, and to a lesser extent UCLA, like they're a pretty well known brand and important brand too. I think that helps too, and sort of consolidating power in that way. But now there's this new element to it where you have to satisfy your television partners, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to do that with only two West Coast based programs. And that opens door for, I don't know, like I'm not reporting that the Big Ten is open for business again, but I think you can use your brain and think like, oh no, does this open a door for a Washington or an Oregon or a Cal or somebody like that, Stanford, to get back into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the narrative being that, and I think it still could be very possible that, think about it in NFL terms, like AFC and NFC, that we will eventually get there. And it just feels like that's the next step as far as the process, as far as these schools and realignment and all that stuff.
Yeah, we're practically there when you think about where the SEC and the Big Ten are. There are probably, I don't know, close to a dozen maybe other programs who maybe aren't affiliated with either conference who I think would like to be when that time ultimately does come. But I think we're pretty far down that road already with the additions of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten and Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. We're like 3 or 4 chess moves away, I think, from having that reality.
We're talking to Bill Landis with Rivals. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Landis25. As far as the podcast, he referenced at the podcast _OSU. And, of course, also at Ohio State _Rivals. Now that we are getting closer and closer to a 12-team playoff, we hope. I wanted to ask you specifically, as far as the Big Ten is concerned, there's been talk about going to like 4 non-conference and less conference games. Wouldn't it feel like that would be the opposite? Like, wouldn't you want to go if you're going to go to a 12-team playoff and teams are going to make the playoff? Let's face it, teams are going to make a playoff that, if you're 9-3 as opposed to another team's 11-1, you're going to make the case you're going to get in. So those losses that were just season enders really won't be the case. Do you think we could see the Big Ten go to 10 conference games, or is that just completely off the table?
No, I kind of think they will. I don't think that's imminent. They have to figure out how to integrate USC and UCLA first, and what that scheduling model is going to look like for the next couple of years. I think maybe as long as it's just the conference as it stands now, with that is saying with the addition of USC and UCLA, I think maybe they'll try to stay at 9, but once they inevitably add more, and they will, whether that's 2, 3, 5 years from now, I think you probably will see them go to 10 games and then have 2 probably fairly boring non-conference games. If I had to guess, Ohio State does have in future schedules like Alabama and Texas and Georgia coming down the line. We'll see if those games happen. Some of their more recent additions are like the Marshalls and Charlottes of the world. Like I think you're probably going to get back into that territory rather than schedule those marquee non-conference games. I think a lot of it is going to be sort of kept in-house, and that is to say, like, add another conference game to get to 10, and then figure out the other 2 from there.
So I'm scrambling right now for Michigan's schedule, and this is not to crap on Michigan. I'm not looking to do that, but their schedule. First of all, their non-conference schedule is a joke. They've got, I want to say, like East Carolina, Bowling Green, and like UNLV. Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah, it's unimpressive.
Yeah, like I was looking at it, and I think it was like the first 6 or 7 games. I'm going, well, I mean, they should just be able to roll out of bed and win these first 6 or 7 and all of that. But yeah, I guess that's that's my question. Are we going to get to a point and very soon where these teams are going to start scheduling, tougher opponents. And because the idea of that, you just can't have a loss and still compete is going to be somewhat out the window when the playoff arrives.
That would be my hope. Like that, I think that logic makes sense. Like the penalty for losing is going to be totally different. Like in Ohio State's case, I think Ohio State can lose 10 games or 2 games, excuse me, not 10 games, 2 games in perpetuity and always make the playoff. So that in my mind should invite more opportunity to schedule those kind of non-conference games. But I also wonder too if maybe the conference as a whole, the goal is no longer like we got to position somebody to get in. It's like get as many teams as possible in. So if the Big Ten wants to have 5 teams in a 12-team playoff, or the SEC wants to have 6 or 7 teams in a 12-team playoff, I think it might behoove them to soften those non-conference schedules and then just play each other basically and try to get there. So I don't know. My initial reaction was great. We're going to see more of these like helmet games in the non-conference, but the way that Ohio State in particular has scheduled here of late, some of the games they've had, it like leads me to believe that maybe that won't be the case.
I just think about, and I know that. So explain real quick, and I know I'm kind of coming at this from so many different angles because quite honestly, like it's tough for even me to wrap my mind around it, and I'd like to think I follow it somewhat, but when you have Fox, you have CBS, you have NBC, are they doing like for lack of a better term, like a fantasy draft, almost like we're in our fantasy leagues? Are they picking like which games, and like Fox I would get? Because I think Ohio State, Michigan, we already know was noon. Fox, we think, had first pick. Are we guessing that NBC second? Or how does that whole process work, if you know?
I actually don't know. Fox definitely has the first pick. And I think it's more that they draft the week of the year than it is they draft the game. So the last week of the regular season, Fox wants the first pick that week, and obviously they're going to take Ohio State, Michigan. I think that's how it works. But I'm probably speaking a little bit out of turn because I'm not as familiar with it as I should be. And I think NBC has more inventory than CBS in terms of football, because CBS, I think, wants to get to the point where it's just going to have that 3:30 traditional SEC slot.
Right.
After this year, they're like in a weird in between where they have both the Big Ten and the SEC this coming fall, but then after that they'll just have the Big Ten, and that's where the Big Ten will go. So, and I think NBC will have afternoon and evening windows. So I would imagine that they're second at the table in terms of picking games, but Fox is almost always going to get, I think, the most important Big Ten games. I will be surprised if any of Ohio State's biggest games, aside from like the random Notre Dame game that's going to be on NBC because of that connection there, I think most of Ohio State's major games are going to be on Fox.
A few more minutes with Bill Landis from Rivals here, joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. All right, let's talk specifically a little Ohio State here. And recently, I think it was I know it was Kirk Herbstreit. I think it was in The Athletic, but I don't remember where it was exactly. But he made the comment about how the idea that Ryan Day's on the hot seat is ridiculous. And there was some pushback. Matter of fact, here locally, it was spirited debate, myself and somebody else. And his standpoint was, well, yeah, it should be. He should be on the hot seat. And if you don't beat Michigan every year, and I'm thinking, yeah, I know. That's always going to be the goal. We know what Ohio State fans and how Ohio State fans think. I guess maybe for me it's a little bit tougher because I was there in the mid-'90s when it was like, unfortunately that would be the season ender. Now, I know things have changed, and I know the program is at an all-time high right now. What did you make of Herbstreit's comments and that – it is absolutely ridiculous that fans right now in Columbus feel that Ryan Day is on the hot seat?
Yeah, I found them to be a little too dismissive of what I think are fair concerns from Ohio State fans. Sometimes those concerns aren't always delivered in the best way. People, and if you spend enough time on social media, I think you'll drive yourself crazy. And I think that's where a lot of Kirk's viewpoint was coming from. I guess it depends on what you mean by hot seat. Like, if things don't go the way you think they should go this year, he's going to be fired.
Like, if he loses to Michigan this year, he should be canned, I guess.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. But I do think there's some pressure. Like
Sure.
he says it, right. It's Ohio State's stated goal every year: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win the national championship. Um, they've not done that for 3 years. So I don't, and I get like 2020, they won the Big Ten, they didn't get to play Michigan. Like that's fine. Like there's some nuance there, but they haven't beaten Michigan in 3 years. So that is not good enough at Ohio State. You expect to beat Michigan more often than that. I if your expectation is beat them every year or else, I think you're going to be left disappointed quite a bit. But um, you should be winning more often than not. You shouldn't be getting your butt kicked the way they have the last 2 years. So if people are feeling some type of way about that, I think they're entitled to. Ryan Day has gotten close to winning a national championship. He's won a playoff game. He's won 2 Big Ten titles. Like it's not like he's done nothing in his tenure. But I think there's a feeling that he's left a little bit out there too. And on top of that, they're losing to Michigan. So I don't think he should be fired if they lose. And the other thing about this too is this is drastically going to change once the playoff is expanded next year. Like losing to Michigan, losing to anybody is going to mean less in the
Right.
context of trying to accomplish your goals for the season. I'm not saying that Ohio State fans should suddenly start accepting losses to Michigan because I don't think you should, but it's no longer going to be an impediment for you winning a national championship. It wasn't last year. Like they almost beat Georgia, and if they would have gotten to the TCU game, I think they would have won that, even though they lost to Michigan. Like that is a new reality. So I don't know if you can base hiring and firings at Ohio State anymore solely on the Michigan game when there's going to be opportunities beyond that game in a new world where the playoff is expanded.
And I guess, I was one that thought it was a bit ridiculous, but I also can see, where Ohio State is right now, these are the expectations. And those expectations, as far as beating Michigan, I mean, look, that's why Earl Bruce was fired. That's why John Cooper was fired. So it's not like, wow, this is a new thing. I guess to your point, and it's a good one, does hot seat mean that if he loses to Michigan again, he's done? There are some out there that believe, yes, he absolutely should be. I don't know, but I will say this, Bill. The way it's not just losing to Michigan, and you know this better than anybody covering it. It was the way they lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
Like it was a physicality. It was on defense, Jim Knowles. I don't know. I like Jim Knowles like the entire year, and I think everybody liked Jim Knowles the entire year. And then it was against Michigan. Like, wait a minute, what the hell was that? What are they doing, or have you been able to glean anything from talking to some coaches and others about what they're doing to try to patch some of those holes? Because obviously there's some glaring weaknesses or problems that Michigan was able to exploit.
Yeah, I don't think that the issues in both losses are all that similar. Like in Ann Arbor 2 years ago, they just kind of got their butt kicked. I think that team that team lost something in the year 2020, not playing Michigan, talking a bunch of smack, and then never playing that game. They went up to Ann Arbor, and I think they were entitled to win that game. And Michigan, I think, was a little tight, and then realized that Ohio State wasn't on its A game, took the lead, saw Ohio State bleed, and then ran away with it. And then Michigan showed up in Columbus last year, and they just weren't afraid of Ohio State anymore.
No.
For the previous nearly decade, Ohio State had an incredible psychological edge over Michigan, in addition to being more talented than them and better coached than them. Now I think you can argue the coaching is probably on equal footing, if not even a little better in Michigan's favor. Michigan is not as talented as Ohio State, but they're more talented than they were when Urban Meyer was coaching against them. And that psychological edge is now gone. So those are all the things that Ohio State, I think, needs to contend with. And I think Ohio State was really tight last year. So Ryan Day, it's interesting going into the Georgia game. I think he knew that Ohio State played tight against Michigan and was intentional about making sure his team did not play that way against Georgia. And they didn't play that way against Georgia. They played the best game I think maybe they've played under Ryan Day against Georgia.
Yep.
Maybe the exception is that the Clemson win and the Sugar Bowl might be up there too. If he can harness that and carry that through this year and take it to Ann Arbor with them, I think that is probably the key to getting back on top in the rivalry, because they are still more talented than Michigan. And there were glimpses of the game throughout the game last year. It was like, okay, I think they got some of this figured out. And then in the second half, it just got away from them again because I think that psychological point sort of tilted toward Michigan and away from Ohio State. So that's the thing they need to get back more than anything. There are schematic stuff like Jim Knowles needs to make some better calls for sure. Ryan Day needs to get the offense executing a little bit better in the red zone and finishing drives better. But I think a lot of it is the mental aspect of it and understanding that the state of play 4 years ago when Ohio State could just show up and pummel Michigan, that's not the way it is anymore. Ohio State has to be on its game when it goes into that game.
We talk about an early look at Ohio State. Of course, you had the spring game. I think we know on that defensive line they're loaded again this year. Offensive line, you lost some key guys to the NFL. Give us kind of a thumbnail sketch, Bill, if you would, in terms of what the Buckeyes look like here coming in.
Yeah, I mean, start with quarterback. I guess they got to find a new one. With C.J. Stroud going to the NFL, it's probably going to be Kyle McCord. I think that's still a competition between him and Devin Brown. I think both guys are pretty good. They'll be green for sure. Kyle's got one start. Devin has hardly played, but they're talented guys, and Ohio State brought him here for a reason. And Ryan Day has shown an ability to get whoever his young quarterback is up to speed. So I'm not too worried about that. Receivers are awesome. The running backs are awesome. Like the skill is very good. I think a lot of this year comes down to two things. One is this everyone getting more comfortable in Jim Knowles' defense in the second year. And I think there's reason to be optimistic about that. It was a pretty good spring for the defense. For whatever that's worth, it was a good spring for the defense, and they came out of it pretty confident. And then the other thing is the offensive line. They need to replace 2 tackles and a center. And the recruiting over the last few years has left them a little shorthanded, I think, at both positions. And they had to go get a transfer to play one of the tackle spots from San Diego State. They got a kid in Josh Fryer who's probably going to play left tackle who has never really played there before. And they're going to have either a fourth-year guy who's never played much or a redshirt freshman who's not played at all starting at center. So that, I think, is probably where things are going to be decided for Ohio State. The good thing for them is they got a little bit of runway before they have to go play Notre Dame to get that offensive line kind of up to speed. But I think that is the position group that sort of makes or breaks the season for the Buckeyes.
We saw the Browns land 2 of those offensive linemen, DeJuan Jones, obviously. I want to talk to you about Whippler, though, because was Ohio State kind of surprised that he decided to go pro? Did they think he was going to come back and maybe needed to come back for another year?
Yeah, they were surprised. I don't think they were expecting that, and that has left them in a little bit of a bind to try to figure out how to replace him. He was a good player, like really smart guy, tough kid.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't drafted the highest, but he meant a lot to them up front for a lot of different reasons, and they were not planning for him to go. He had a good season, and he had, I think, in his mind, he's like, "Oh, I played really well against Georgia. I'm going to go now and strike while the iron's hot." I think the iron was probably not quite as hot as he thought it was, but he ended up getting drafted anyway. And it was a tough blow for Ohio State. They ended up losing Luke Whippler and Parrish Johnson, 2 talented offensive linemen after only 3 years, and that's tough to account for.
All right, one last thing for you, just quickly. As far as recruiting, is there some big names that fans can be on the lookout for that haven't committed that Ohio State is definitely searching for?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot in an area that is not necessarily my expertise.
I feel I should have told you that before, but
that's all right. They're pretty well set on offense. Probably looking for another tackle or 2. Brandon Baker is a kid from California who's one of the better offensive tackles in the country, and that is the kind of splash I think they need to make on that side of the ball. They got to keep Jeremiah Smith, who's probably the best receiver prospect that Brian Hartline has landed, but that's going to be a tough recruitment to keep him in the fold. But otherwise, they're pretty good on that side. And defense, they have 2 linebackers, and that's it. So they need to do a lot of work on that side of the ball. There's some in-state cornerbacks. Aaron Scott down in Springfield, Bryce West at Glenville up in Cleveland. I think if you get those 2 guys, you're starting to look pretty good in the secondary. I think maybe the biggest thing for them, rather than just like to give you like a name or a couple names, is they need to make a splash on the defensive side. There were a lot of guys last year that it looked like they were in good positions for that they ultimately didn't get, and they're kind of paying the price for that now if you look at how things could play out for their roster down the line. So whether that's like a 5-star safety or like a 5-star like JT Tuimoloau style defensive end, I think that's the kind of splash that Ohio State fans are hoping to see in this class.
Well, in closing, congratulations. You and your wife welcomed is it a baby girl?
Baby boy.
Baby boy.
Baby
okay.
boy. Yeah.
How old now?
He will be 5 months next weekend.
Are you sleeping through or no?
No, not yet. Oh, I think we're getting closer to that, but we're not quite there yet. And he's also I can already tell he's going to be destructive with the way he's throwing his hands and feet around.
Was there any advice that you got from Uncle Ari Wasserman that proved to be absolutely just completely wrong?
Yeah, I think all the advice that Ari's given me in the time I've known him has mostly been wrong. No, he's actually, believe it or not, he's had some very sweet things to say about fatherhood that I have found quite insightful and I appreciate throughout this process.
Our Uncle Ari's getting a little soft. I like it.
He is.
He
Definitely is. Yeah.
Bill, we appreciate the time, buddy. It was so great to catch up with you again, and absolutely looking forward to talking to you this fall and throughout the football season. Thank you, buddy. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. That is, again, Bill Landis from Rivals. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Landis25. Also, the at the podcast _OSU and at Ohio State _Rivals. Good stuff. I'm a subscriber. I love it. I'm not just throwing that out there. It's the coverage is Jeremy Birmingham, Austin Ward, Bill. I mean, Bill at the Athletic, when he was at the Athletic, was like his breakdowns from the games. Like, and I mean, like he'd take video. It was what was cool about it is like, I follow football. I know football to get by, but like to get down to the nitty gritty and really break something down, I'm not that deep into it, but he made it so easy to understand in the video breakdown. He's one of my always been one of my favorites. Very talented guy.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that he was on a podcast with Berm, who I will contend is the most well-connected insider in all of Ohio State recruiting.
Wow.
Nobody has better connections than Berm. He is on it, so I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. And I like Austin Ward too, so that sounds like a great trio.
So then we'll have to bring in and I felt bad because I knew that Landis wasn't Berm's their recruiting expert. We'll have to get Berm on the show then.
Nobody knows recruiting better. I mean, he's in touch with these guys. Like he's really like networking with these kids, and he's in the know for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, good stuff there. I tell you what, we'll take a break. When we come back, unpack a few things that he had to say as far as the NCAA moving forward. Bohm, I'm sure you have a few thoughts too on some things you heard. We'll talk about that. If you want to chime in, 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. Also, you can follow the show on Twitter. Stream us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. And go on YouTube, The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and you're all set to go. We'll be back with more of The Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back on this Thursday. It is the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. Good to have you along. Michael Bohm is here as well. And good stuff from Bill Landis. Really good to catch up with him again. And of course, congratulations to him and his wife on the birth of a baby boy, 5 months old. Ari Wasserman's getting soft. How about that? Ari, fatherhood, they say, will do that to you. I don't know, but fatherhood, they say, will do that to you. So good for those two guys. You know, Bohm, as I listen to him, and I know this, I'm preaching to the choir because I know this is not, news. I know this is not any kind of revelation, but man, it becomes more and more apparent, if not like just blatantly obvious, that the NCAA, they've got to have some sort of structure, some sort of leadership, one voice. You can't, they can't continue to operate the way they're operating, because you can't have different, and I understand that it's not like the NFL. I understand. I get all of that, but I also think that you can do a better job, a much better job of at least trying, or maybe just from an optics standpoint, make it look like you're trying to get guys on the same page, guys and girls on the same page, because, these are very important times that they're moving into, very lucrative times they're moving into that we're already in. But remember with NIL, and I was all for it. I'm still all for it. But remember some of I think it might have been, I don't know if it was Lee Corso. I don't know if it was maybe some of the coaches. But there were quite a few people that said, look, this is going to be good and it's fair, but we need to realize, like, before we just start shoot from the hip and do this, we got to make sure that we got all our I's dotted and T's crossed, because down the road, and what are we seeing right now? The whole, collective thing. There were a lot of loopholes that, these guys are too smart, crafty, scheme, shady, whatever you know what I mean? Like, they're going to find a way. And part of it is that's the state of college football nowadays. But I do think there was a lot of credence to those people that said this is good. We're not saying don't have it, but you might want to vet this a little bit more and make sure that you're aware of all the things that could come of this, not only now but down the road.
Yeah, Chico, I totally concur with you. And look, it feels a lot like the Wild West out there as far as the NIL goes, and Ohio State has absolutely missed out on a number of big name prospects, who even some who had committed to Ohio State because specifically of that NIL. It definitely needs more oversight. And look, it's unprecedented, uncharted waters, what they're doing with this NIL, and I am totally in favor of it. I think it is justified and warranted, but it absolutely needs more oversight.
Well, you've got it, and the bottom line is, and I know some people are listening to this saying, well, it's always been an unfair playing field, and it has been. It's the haves and the have-nots. And some will say, well, even more so, that's the case now. I could make an argument for both sides that it's good for, the schools that wouldn't normally be considered a powerhouse or a one of the top teams, that every now and then you're going to have that come into play. But I do think, I feel like you can't have. This is why we're seeing coaches too get out. Like, and I know, like, a guy like Mike Krzyzewski and Jay Wright and other guys in college football too, but it was mainly in basketball. But because it's almost like you have no control. Your coaches have no control over what's going on. When your coaches don't have control over what's going on, now you've got real problems. The fact of the matter is, it's a totally different landscape today anyway. Guys are getting paid. Guys are, they're thinking about that big check in the NFL. And not that they didn't do that 40 years ago, but now it's big time money. It's readily available. But I think the process of these kids, of the athletes, like, realizing that they can have that dream and might be able to achieve that goal is starting now in like junior high. So by the time these guys, so coaches have a lot to deal with. They earn their money. I know people will look at contracts and go, that guy's getting $7 million a year. Well, when you think about the money that's brought in and, you know, what that job entails from a recruiting standpoint, day-to-day standpoint, oh, yeah, you got to coach football, making sure that you're doing things the right way in accordance with the rules and all that. It's not easy, but I think it's I think some of these coaches, like Nick Saban sounds flippant when he makes these remarks, but you know what? There's some truth to it. Like, you know, everybody's kind of just doing their own thing, and without one voice, without somebody saying, okay, this is how it's going to be, and being clear about that, you're going to have these issues. They're not going anywhere. So those people that warned you and that warned all of us that, you know, this could happen, were right. They were absolutely right. The other thing that I think we're going to see, and I'm kind of glad about this, I love the fact that the college football season, for those that don't like college football but love college basketball, people say, well, at least in college hoops, like you can lose a game or 2 games or 4 games, and you could still make a run in the NCAA tournament and be fine and whatever. A loss doesn't kill you. Now, obviously, we know the obvious answer is there's more games to be played and all of that sort of thing, and more teams eligible for the tournament and all that. But I think now with the 12-team playoff coming to college football, I like the idea that you're not just, oh my God, you're dead in the water if you lose one game. And yeah, I think you're going to see now real arguments for, like, let's say you've got a team that's 11-1 versus a team that is, say, 9-3, and that 9-3 team played a much harder schedule. That 9-3 team's going to have a legit argument and will probably get in. You'll see that. And there will be, I mean, there's always, no matter what system you employ, you're going to have folks upset. You're not going to make everybody happy. But I do think that now we're going to see more of, okay, look, you can lose a game and it's not the end-all be-all for your season, which I think is a good thing.
I'm looking forward to the day that a 12 seed wins the national championship.
That might be now that could be a little while. That could be a pipe dream. But I mean, I guess it's kind of like saying I'm waiting for the day that a 13 seed wins the national championship in hoops. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be tough. You have those powerhouses, but just the fact that you give them a chance and you have it's better. And that's why, like, these guys waiting and, well, we don't know now if this is going to work. We wanted it to be as soon as possible, but now some presidents have some hangups. And you know what it comes down to? I mean, it comes down to the almighty dollar. I mean, the television, no surprise, the television is what's steering all of this. I mean, think of the NFL. I mentioned this about Roger Goodell and getting his extension. The NFL just made $100 million for one playoff game to be streamed on the Peacock Network. The Big Ten, the contract that wasn't finalized, thank you, Kevin Warren, Tony Petitti will take it from here. The contract that wasn't finalized, 7 years, $7 billion. I mean, yeah, it's a whole new ball game. So, but good stuff from him, and we'll be talking to Mark. I'm looking at a guy named Mark online. We'll be talking to Bill each and every week during the college football season. So, looking forward to it. You all right there, Bo?
I'm intrigued by Mark.
Don't be intrigued by Mark.
Zuckerberg? Just looking at Mark Zuckerberg during the show.
How you doing, Bo?
Lovely.
You were on a nice course, even keel course where the giggles were, and now they're back.
You better watch your words, Chico. You might crack me up.
Yeah.
Set me off.
Well,
ticking time bomb, just waiting to blow.
You done?
Go on.
All right. We will take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Guardians baseball. Again, the numbers just continue to defy any kind of logic, any kind of anything. They're just it's unbelievable. They lose to the White Sox yesterday, and they've got a really tough test coming in town this weekend in the St. Louis Cardinals. But we'll talk about that, go over some of these numbers and how to fix it. Is there a fix? And one fix that I think people need to chill out just a bit on. I'm going to touch on that when we come back in the second hour, and we will play, if Bohm can keep it together, a Thursday version. I got Mark, I got Wednesday, I got Bill, I got Thursday. I'm all mixed up here. Thursday version of Fair or Foul. More, the Chico Bormann Show, Hour 2, still to come right here on the Big Play Network. Back live, second hour on this Thursday edition of the Chico Bormann Show, with you until 3 o'clock here on the Big Play Network. Also, you can find us streaming on Twitter. Very easy. Go to the Twitter sphere. Twitter fear. You don't have to fear Twitter. The Twitter sphere.
Maybe you should fear Twitter, though.
You know what? I do. I'll be honest with you. He's right about, when we were talking about the Herb Street comments and Ryan Day, like, if you spend enough time on Twitter, it will affect your health. I'm convinced of it. Like, you can't spend that much time, unless you're just, you're enjoying it and whatever. But if you're in it to, like, argue and, oh my gosh, can't believe no, don't do that. But you can go to Twitter. It does have many advantages, including being able to stream the Chico Bormann Show live each and every day, Monday through Friday, 1 until 3, at Chico Show, CLE And also go over to YouTube, type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you will be all set to go. We got Fair or Foul coming up in a bit. We got a Game 5 between the Celtics and the Heat. Celtics can't win another one, although it is at home. I didn't think the Celtics had a chance in Game 4. I just didn't. Even though, I know the desperation card, backs against the wall, win or go home. I just didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. Could get very interesting with a win tonight. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to talk about the Guardians. All right. So they lose to the White Sox. They've lost 2 in a row. Lose the series to the White Sox. They're now 21-28. Amazingly enough, though, because the Twins have lost 6 of their last 10, they are only 4.5 games back of first place. The Detroit Tigers are in second place, 2.5 games out. The Tigers, nobody's paying attention, and they shouldn't be. It's the Tigers. I get it. Certainly not around here and really around baseball. But all of a sudden, these young guys, they're starting to, okay, it's not too big for us anymore. Tigers are hanging in there. So, but the Guardians, 21-28. They've got the St. Louis Cardinals. We talked to Booney about the Cardinals last night or yesterday on the show. This is a Cardinals team that is red hot. This is a Cardinals team. You all right, Boom? What's going
on? No, just homegirl just passed.
Cardinals are coming in, playing really good baseball. They're like, 12-4 their last 16 games. And this was a team that started 10-24. So this can be both good and bad. The good is you're looking for something to say, okay, the Guardians can get off the mat here. The Guardians can and they will. Will it be too late? Will it be enough? I don't know. But they're not going to continue, I don't think, to be this bad offensively. And I'll get to just how bad in a moment. But the St. Louis Cardinals started 10-24. And I remember talking to Booney that day when they were 10-24, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I've pretty much written them off. Like, I just don't that's probably too deep of a hole. And here you go. So it can happen. And certainly with Terry Francona managed teams, you just never say die. But it is getting really, really ugly. They're 7 games below 500 for the first time since 2015. I love this, and I'm going to quote here, and I'm going to give our buddy Zach Meisel credit. I was reading his piece in The Athletic yesterday. This is good. He writes that when Will Brennan hit a home run on Monday night, the person operating the fireworks station sprinted across the top level of the Gateway East parking garage to their post perched above center field. Brennan had already rounded second base and flashed a bird signal to his dugout by the time the fireworks finally exploded in the sky. Remember the bird. But he writes, who could blame the operator for being a few seconds tardy? Guardians have hit a grand total of 12 home runs in 24 games at Progressive Field. And, of course, their total right now is, 21, something like that, dead last. These numbers are – this is oh, boy, this is scary. Game-by-game run totals for the month of May. Boom. If you have a sensitive stomach or just this is ugly. Game-by-game run totals for the month of May. 3, 2, 3, 0, 4, 2, 2, 2, 0, 4, 8, 4, 3, 2, 3, 9, 4, 1, 3, 2, and yesterday 0. 6-0 shutout to the White Sox. Home runs 30th. That would be out of 30 teams. Batting average 30th. On base percentage 29th. Slugging percentage 30th. Barrel rate 30th. Hard hit rate 28th. Weighted run. I'm done. They're all 30. It's like there's nowhere to go but up. Eventually they're going to get there. I think. I hope. But I will say one thing. I am certainly with all of you out there who want to see Bo Naylor sooner rather than later. And I think we will. He still has some, apparently some refining to do defensively down there. And again, I know the response is, well, it can't be much worse than what they have right now with Zunino and Cam Gallagher. Maybe you're right. But again, when it's a youngster, you want to make sure that he's not just completely overwhelmed. And it's a position where there's a lot more that goes into it than just fielding a ground ball and firing across the diamond. He's setting up the whole defense. He's setting up the pitcher. He's, got to have that rapport, all of that stuff. That said, it's like I'm hearing more and more people, and maybe I'm just spending too much time on Twitter, but it feels like I'm hearing more and more people that think like Bo Naylor is the answer to the season. Maybe he is, okay? But I don't want to set anybody else. I don't want to set anybody up for like a disappointment that we've seen already. Okay, Bo Naylor is. It's almost like people are talking about him like he's the next Johnny Bench. And compared to these guys, I'm sure people feel he is Johnny Bench. I get it. I mean, you're looking for something right now. Fans want to see something, and the reality is, and Tito has said it, and it's not something that you want to hear, but you're going to hear, the right field situation. Who's the big right-handed bat? He ain't there. Like they're not there right now. And last year's guys that were flashing now maybe starting to, in a sophomore slump of sorts. But I think as far as Bo Naylor's concerned, I think he's going to be good. I do. How good, I'm not quite sure. But like I can remember Sean Murphy, who was a big-time acquisition by the Braves, and, gee, no secret. I mean, the Braves have many reasons why they're leading the NL East and are 30-19 on the year. With Sean Murphy, the Guardians didn't hide the fact that they were interested in him. The package that the Oakland A's wanted back from Cleveland was apparently a little too much for them, for Antonetti and Chernoff to give them. So they declined, and he ends up in Atlanta. Sean Murphy's been incredible, and Sean Murphy's the guy that, he does it behind the plate. He's raking for the Braves. He's up there with their RBI leaders. He's gone deep. He's done it all for them. He's been everything they wanted and then some. So this is not to say that, oh my gosh, why didn't they pull the trigger? Although it would have been nice, but okay, they wanted too much. But having said that, it almost seems like there was really no plan in play. Like Zunino has been so injured, and that nerve injury or whatever it is, his shoulder, like it felt like a wing and a prayer. I mean, there was a time when Mike Zunino was pretty damn good behind the plate. He could throw out guys and he could hit the home run, was never going to hit for average, but those days are gone. And it's just what you see is what you get right now. Like these guys are just going to have to find a way to figure it out. What that is, how that happens, I don't know. All I'm saying with Bo Naylor is, yes, I'm excited too. I want to see him ASAP because Zunino, Gallagher, what, are you kidding? But I also don't want to put unfair pressure on this guy, and a lot of people feel like, well, the answer is just sitting down there in AAA. If you honestly think, with the numbers that I just read back to you, batting average 30th, OBP 29th, slugging 30th, barrel rate 30th, last in home runs by a lot. If you honestly think that Bo Naylor's coming up and will single-handedly... Now, could he maybe be a spark? Could he get some things going? Hopefully, because they desperately need that. But I'm nervous about this weekend. I really am, Boom. I know anything can happen in baseball, but the way they're playing, the way the Cardinals are playing, if they get swept at home and they go, that would put them 10 games below 500. And again, I know the Cardinals started the season 10-24. I also know that the American League Central Division is still wide open, but it can only be wide open for so long. It can only be wide open if you're hovering around 500. And right now, you're 7 games below. Like we said, they haven't been that far below 500 since 2015. We're going on almost 10 years. And depending on how the weekend goes, I mean, they've got to start making some headway. And I know it's, Bo Naylor's something to look forward to. The return of Tristan McKenzie is something to look forward to. But in terms of the bats, sorry, folks, what you see is what you get. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, Chico. Look, I know it doesn't compare, but in a lot of ways, it reminds me of some of the despair that was looming over those Hugh Jackson-led Browns teams. They were just, in a lot of ways, it felt hopeless. And
wow.
If the Guardians can't turn it around at any point soon, I think that hopelessness is only going to continue to worsen. It's going to become more and more
Tito run
prominent.
into Lake Erie?
No
with
chance.
His shorts falling down.
No, but maybe I'll try a different.
Well,
flavor
I don't
of
know
ice
if
cream or
I
something.
could go. I see where you're going with it.
There are similar feelings.
It's wearing on you. It's tough. They're tough to watch right now. And like, I mean, you're watching these games and like they're quick. They're even quicker now. I mean, Guardians games are the quickest around because they pretty much go 1, 2, 3. I mean, so like you like the fact that the games are sped up a little bit, but you don't like the fact that they're sped up even more when you're watching the Guardians because they don't get any runners on base. I had some guy arguing with me that the reason that one of the reasons they're struggling is they're not running enough. It's not a matter of they're not running enough. They don't have enough guys on base to run. And they're like 3rd or 4th in stolen bases. I think that's pretty damn good considering, last night, what did you get? 2 hits, 3 hits, something like that? They don't have guys on base to steal bases. And last year, that was one of their things. So that's got to change. It's got to change soon. Hopefully it'll change tomorrow, beginning in that 3-game series with the Cardinals. But if not, despair. Hugh Jackson in the Browns. Hugh Jackson's here, baby. He sure as hell is.
Remember when he described Baker Mayfield like the Pied Piper?
Yeah, I just remember, I still say, I was talking to Eric Edholm about this recently off the air before we get to Fair or Foul. And we were talking about Hugh Jackson, and I said he had never really seen the clip. Remember when Hugh, was flown into Berea, right after, and, everybody was lined up. It almost looked like something out of a movie. They were lining the escalators and around the building, and everybody's giving him a standing ovation. And I'm like,
They gave him the old dog and pony show.
I mean, I guess it was, I thought it was a good hire. I can't sit here and go, oh, I didn't want Hugh Jackson. But looking back on it, even then, I'm like, wow, did Nelson Mandela just become the Browns head coach? The way people were just going nuts over him. It was almost like Johnny Manziel when he got drafted and grown men are crying. But I don't know. Hopefully we don't get to those depths of despair. But Bohm, thank you for throwing Hugh Jackson and the Browns out there as a reminder because that's not good. All right, it is time for a Thursday edition. Ready or not, fair or foul. Fair or foul on this Thursday. Michael Bohm, take it away. Giggles, what do you got for me?
All right, Chico.
We got
Well,
a plane landing, by the way, real quick. And safe landing. All right, go ahead.
all right, we have touchdown safely
At the BLA.
lake. Yes.
The BLA.
Love to hear it, Chico.
Yeah.
Now, I want to start with a little college ball because we had Bill Landis on. Sorry, I was college ball. I digress. All right, so we had Bill Landis on of Rivals, and he was sorry, he was discussing whether, because we know that UCLA and USC are coming to the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
He was discussing his thoughts on whether more teams could make that transition from out west. Now, fair or foul, if one of the Power 5 conferences were to go extinct, it would be the Pac-10. Pac-12. Pac-10?
Pac-12.
Pac-12.
Now is what it is. But, yeah, I don't mind saying Pac-10. I'll go I feel it's going to be the ACC. I mean, Pac-12 is a pretty good guess, but it feels like it already feels like the ACC is like just tearing apart at the seams, right? I mean, I'll go foul on that, but I will say that the Pac-12 that would be a good race. But I think I'd probably, if I had to pick one, I'd probably
Big 12. At one, their most exciting recent addition was Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, any of them. I feel like the ACC, and I'm also going with leadership too. Like the ACC, as far as the commissioner there, I can't think of his name right now, but has been taking a ton of heat. Pac-12, I think their guy has some backing. He's done some good things. ACC feels like they're just kind of floundering right now. So that, to me, might be the logical choice.
All right, well, another offseason, another Kyrie Irving tirade. As he went live, I believe this was yesterday, and he said, quote, "Stop mentioning me on Twitter. All y'all fan bases, it is the conference finals. Can you please leave me the F out of this? Y'all got people at my dinner table discussing what my free agency plans are. I see all y'all mentions. Now, Chico, yeah, is this tirade fair or foul?"
It's totally foul. Shut up, Kai. He has become, first of all, we're talking about a guy that absolutely, positively loves the spotlight, okay? He seeks it out. So now when it comes to, free agency, I wonder if he's just, saying this, but deep down is like, keep it coming. Like, by me saying this, maybe it'll antagonize some people even more because he loves that. I mean, he really does. I know there's talk about the Lakers. First of all, is LeBron going to retire? We already talked about this earlier in the week. I will say I think he's giving it some thought. Do I think he ultimately will? No. But the next conversation is, do you think Kyrie would? I don't. What is the fascination with Kyrie? I mean, he's a great player, but it's like what you're getting. You're signing up for it's akin to, we'll have Casilius on the show tomorrow, the king of the analogies, and I'm not even close to him. But it really is like, okay, I'm going to ask this lady to marry me. She's drop dead gorgeous, just, incredible, but I am going to be her 8th husband. But you know what? It'll be different. He is who he is. If he could get himself straight, Kyrie Irving would be, because he's one of the most talented offensive players I've ever seen. Like his handle, his ability to finish, ability to shoot. I mean, he's got so much talent, but it's like he can't help but self-destruct. It's almost like when things are going well, he doesn't like that. He wants to find a way to screw it up. It's bizarre. But I think the idea, if LeBron starts calling for Kyrie, because remember, last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, he wanted Russell Westbrook. I don't know. But as far as Kyrie saying, I see y'all mentions and whatever. I mean, you're a professional athlete. You're a lightning rod professional athlete at that. This guy, and I'm biased because I did not like the comments he made when he left Cleveland. I still don't. It's why I say anybody that talks to me about a jersey retirement or, any kind of anything like that, I just always blow it off. Unless he changes drastically and there are apologies, there is no way in hell I'm putting Kyrie Irving's jersey up there. And I don't want to hear, again, listen to me clearly here. I don't want to hear, well, you can't write the 2016 season without Kyrie. I get it. Without Kyrie Irving. He was a great player. Hit the shot. If you're going to retire someone's number, and put it up in the rafters, I've always believed they've got to be someone that the fan base predominantly loves and it's reciprocated. And that is, if you're going to tell me that's the case right now with Kyrie, some do really love him, but Kyrie doesn't love them back. The majority of people, I believe, myself included, can't stand the guy. There's no way you're putting a jersey in the rafters with the situation the way it is right now. I've got no tolerance for that. Can't stand it.
Now, Chico, quick follow-up with Kyrie, since we're talking about him. And talent aside, is it fair or foul to lump Kyrie Irving in with the names of like Draymond Green, Patrick Beverley, Dylan Brooks in the NBA? Are they of the same ilk?
Well, it's a good question. It's fair in that I think Kyrie's worse, though. Now, ironically, he's better than all those players. I mean, he brings more to the table in terms of just talent, in terms of ability, than all those guys. But with Kyrie, like with Draymond, it's going to be, oh, well, he got into another. And I'm not poo-pooing that like it's no big deal. Or Dylan Brooks, oh, he ran off with his mouth again. And well, we wish he wouldn't have done that. But with Kyrie, it's almost like he's the virus that once he gets in there, like it might take him a while to penetrate, but man, when he gets in there and he's able to infest your locker room and it's forget about it. There's no, and plus you're talking about a guy that he gets paid a boatload of money, and it's just too much of a risk, way too much of a risk, because I don't know how much he truly loves basketball. And if he loves basketball, I know that he really doesn't give a damn about the whole team aspect. He just doesn't.
Well, Chico,
you got me right. That's you want a topic to get me riled up. Kyrie Irving is one of them.
Now, to his credit, he did walk back some of his comments towards Cleveland.
What did he say? Whoa. To Cleveland or to LeBron? About LeBron?
I think he expressed nicer sentiments about Cleveland specifically.
No, he didn't. Give me proof of that.
All right, I'll have to dig that up.
You don't
I'm not
have
gonna pull it up
it.
on the spot.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about when he's like, it'll be nice to go to a real sports city.
I remember that, and that was that felt like a bridge burner at the time.
Yeah, I mean, what has he done since to like make you? Oh yeah, wow, he's really no thanks. All
right, well, sticking in the NBA,
I'll put up Matthew Dellavedova's jersey before I'll put up Kyrie Irving's.
Shout out Delly.
That's right.
Sticking with the NBA, Chico, I came across this hilarious and I'm assuming satirical Twitter thread, just completely annihilating Michael Jordan and explaining why he is not the best player in NBA's history. And I'm not making that case right now. That is not the point of this fair or foul topic. I thought that thread was hilarious, but I saw something else that he mentioned. One of the points that he raised was MJ wasn't even competitive until the Bulls drafted Pippen and gave him a top 2 coach ever in Phil Jackson. Fair or foul, Phil Jackson is a top 2 coach ever.
You can go fair on that. I mean, why can't you go fair on? I mean, the guy's got how many titles? Now you can say, oh well, but he was a part of it. And I'm sorry if Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and Michael Jordan goes so far as to say that, if Phil goes, I go. That tells you how good Phil was. Listen, and we're seeing this today. Look at all the head coaches. Monty Williams, great coach, you're gone. Budenholzer just won a title, you're gone. So it's not even a matter of winning anymore. It's about winning and then being able to relate and be able to have the respect of your players. Phil Jackson did that like nobody else. I mean, whether you like him or don't like him or feel he had a perfect situation, yeah, he had some talent to coach. I'm not disputing that, but he still got the job done. How many championships does he have, Bo? Stand by. Let me look it up. I mean, if you're going to ask me, does he deserve to be a top 2 coach, you should have the 10, 11, something like that, whatever it is. But on top of it, go ahead.
13?
Is it 13? Okay, maybe it's 13. So
yeah,
the guy has that many titles, And
That includes his playing days, actually. So it would be 11.
yeah, it was 11.
plus
I
two
didn't
played.
think it was okay. 11. Yeah, because he played with the Knicks. Think about the players he had on that team. Like he had to Jordan. That's a superstar. Granted, he was a greatest player and he was a good teammate for the most part. But he had his moments. Scotty had his moments. Scotty, when he didn't like his contract, we all saw The Last Dance. He was ready. He wanted no part of it. Dennis Rodman. Hey, you mind if I take a break and go to Vegas for a couple weeks? Well, okay. I mean, Phil Jackson, absolutely top two. You were very you wanted to say foul on that, and I'm curious why you were so quick to dismiss.
No, I don't think I wanted to say foul
No,
on that.
because you were like, and when I said fair, you're like, you had a big smile. You're like, fair or foul? This is your face. Fair or foul? Phil Jackson, top 2 head coach.
Oh, I had to squint and everything, huh?
Yeah, you had it all go. I mean, you might be able to. There's some names you can throw in there, but I mean, of course he's in that conversation.
I'm trying to think of who I might rank 1 or who I might.
Red
put in
Auerbach.
Would you put Phil Jackson over Pat Riley?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. How about Steve Kerr?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, let's move on because I'm not going to think of anyone better than Phil Jackson off the top of my head.
How about David Blatt? Yeah, I'll put him above.
Maybe if we're considering the Maccabi Tel Aviv era,
Yes,
one of the best to ever lace them up.
which we always do. Yeah, by the way, just so people know, they're probably like, "What is when people walk by the studio? I can't not wave. Like it's if somebody walks by and they say hello, I wave. So I'm just letting people know that's
They're admirers, fans of the Chico Bormann show.
They might just be friendly. They're just hey, you see somebody, but I don't want to be that guy like, oh yeah, I met you, or I think I met you. I waved you the other day and you didn't even acknowledge me. Like I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
don't want
like-
to leave them hanging like that.
I'm not like other prima donnas in the business.
Fair.
And we'll leave it at that.
Fair. Now, another NBA one for you. Colin Cowherd was raising an interesting argument, which I can tell you have heard.
I know
Caught
where you're
wind
going.
of
Yeah.
such arguments. Now, he is saying that LeBron James should go to the Golden State Warriors, more or less pull a Kevin Durant in some ways.
He's saying Golden State. I mean, more so than that, because I think LeBron would do it, but he's saying Golden State would do it, and they'd be able to. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to ruin you.
Fair or foul. LeBron should go to the Warriors.
Well, okay. Fair. He should go to the Warriors. Foul that the Warriors will be able. I mean, yeah, and I know he laid out pieces of like saying they've already moved on from who's their big man, Wiseman. And he talked about moving on from Kuminga and whatever, and that they're playing. I think to some degree, here's where I'll give it some merit. To some degree, and you factor in the whole situation right now with Bob Myers, like there's not as much stability as there was in Golden State. And I think now more than ever, at least during their championship runs, I think we've seen them. They are definitely building around, or Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, maybe even moving away from Draymond Green. So it does feel like we got to strike now mentality, but to be able to move the pieces, to me it seems far-fetched. I don't know. But I think from LeBron's standpoint, if you're just looking at this from LeBron's standpoint, would he do it? Absolutely he'd do it. He's always said he wanted to play with Steph.
Yeah, 2 Akronites united at last. Now, do you think that, well, I guess just out of curiosity, since we're talking about Braun, fair or foul, LeBron will play for the Lakers next season?
Fair.
Okay. Now, moving on, Chico, I want to sneak in an NFL one because did you happen to catch Juan Thornhill's comments from press availability yesterday?
I saw something with Juan Thornhill. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, so if you'll recall, not too long ago, he had a string of tweets that started with responding to fans about like all the negativity that he was seeing just amongst the Browns community. And look, I get that because this has not been a winning culture. And all this franchise really seems to know outside of one exceptional season is losing. That being said, he compared it to Kansas City, and he talked about how fans in Kansas City were cocky. Like, he used that word. And he said when they showed up to a stadium, they knew they were going to win. And you have Patrick Mahomes. I think that's a fair assessment. Now, with all of that said, he also requested, I guess, that Browns fans were more like Chiefs fans, more or less. He said that they should be coming in expecting to win, and they should cheer like they expect the team to win. Fair. Well, I don't know that it's a fan's responsibility to like you should always be your best fan self.
He was basically like saying be positive and yeah.
And look, I think it's true, and he said that fans thrive off of it, or I mean, players thrive off of it. You know, they can feed off of that energy, and
sure.
I believe that is totally true to be,
sure.
Feeling the positive vibes. But is it fair or foul to demand that of the Browns fan base? Because I saw it getting some backlash from fans, like, you expect us to treat you like a winner when you haven't won anything for me?
Okay, I'm gonna go fair on like both sides though. Like if I'm Juan Thornhill, I think he seems like a high character guy. So then again, I thought John Johnson was too, and he didn't really. I mean, I'm not saying he was a bad guy, but not the leader I expected. I think what Juan Thornhill is, put it this way, anyone that comes in, especially somebody who comes in from the Chiefs organization, is going to, you've been at the top. That place, I mean, Arrowhead is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL, maybe the toughest. Their fans have been treated to quite a lot. Our fans have not been treated to that. So I think what I would say is, if you give them just a little opening, they're gonna push that door wide open, and they will be going crazy for you. So you don't have anything to worry about. But I also agree with some fans that are like, dude, we've been through hell. That's why I never, even though I disagree with certain statements and certain views and opinions that fans have, I mean, that's life. That's why we have talk shows. No one can ever tell fans how to feel because this fan base has been through hell. And so I get the whole, well, you gotta be positive. We want you to be positive. One thing I can't stand, and this is going on there a little bit, and now I'm going on another Kyrie rant, close to it. Certain media members will put out there like, yeah, I saw where so-and-so, this person had him at 13-4, another one had him at 12 and 5 and whatever, 12, 13, 14 wins. And then he was like, yeah, and I mean, whoever this guy is that had him at 9 and 8, like what that? It's not our job to be cheerleaders. I don't know where that and there are some fans that feel that way. Like, well, if the media were more positive, look, when there's reason to be positive, I'm off the charts positive. 2020 with Kevin Stefanski, I had already said the winning culture had begun. Forget about needing a process, it's already there. 2019, getting ready for Tennessee, I was giddy. But it's not my job to say, and this is not to Juan Thornhill, this is to others in the media. Because it's like, oh, well, maybe, you got to be more positive. No, I don't. My job, nowhere in my contract does it say you must be positive and at least have the Browns with a winning record whenever you talk about projections for the coming season. Never. So, I mean, I'll be positive when it warrants it, but certainly don't tell fans to be positive when they've been dragged through the mud, and not just dragged through the mud, but kind of like, come on, tease you. Oh, well, sorry, it wasn't what it was all cracked up to be. No, that's BS, and I hate that mindset. I hate it.
I agree with you, Chico, but it almost feels like a chicken or the egg debate. Like, is this team ever going to turn it around without that positive mindset and winning mindset, or Do we need that to like actually create the winning mindset? We need a taste of it
No,
first.
I understand the question. It's the other way around. They need to. I mean, it's okay. It's like a concert. Okay, you're a musician. Well, the fans weren't happy with our performance. How was your performance? It sucked. It was one of the worst. We were terrible. Well, what do you expect them to do? They're not cheering crap. Like I don't go into, we talk about movies like, oh, well, was that a good movie or a bad movie? There's a lot of hype for it. Oh, I didn't like it. Okay, it's going to take some heat. Why wouldn't it be the same here? Why do you like? There is an unconditional like support. Now there's a big difference between saying, you know what, I'm moving, and I never understand this. I'm moving on from the Browns. I'm going to be a Steelers fan, or No, you were never a fan in the first place then. So the unconditional, I'm always a Browns fan and I always will be, yes. But that doesn't equate to each and every year you have to be positive and you absolutely have to feel like this team's going to win 12, 13 games or there's something wrong with you. Get out of here. I mean, if the team is unable to win because they don't have enough media members who are positive, then the team's probably not in a position to win anyway. Sorry.
Sure. Now, it's interesting, though, that you mentioned like a concert, though, or like when I think of maybe how week one will go when that team first runs out onto the field.
Yeah. Cheer like hell.
Yeah. I think I would expect.
And they will.
Yeah.
It's like training camp every year.
Mm-hmm.
They get, and that is part of Browns fandom. And yeah, I mean, nobody would boo. That's why it's not even, I don't even bring it up. No, of course, game one and they come out. No fan base is more passionate. No fan base has been more forgiving of crap for the better part of 2 decades than this one. And, you come out of the tunnel, but by game 4, if you've got the same crap going on with the, miscommunication and, guys are big, well, they're going to get what they deserve. So I appreciate where Juan Thornhill is coming from, but the situation and the organization that he came from has gone just a little different than the organization he's going to. Doesn't mean it can't change, but them are just the facts.
All right, Chico. Well, to put a bow on this Thursday edition of Fair or Foul,
yes,
I've got one more
put
for you.
a bow on it, Bone.
Yes,
Put a
just
bow.
tie it ever so nicely. So we were reminiscing about the Hugh Jackson days, and speaking of Hugh Jackson, one of his assistant coaches, Todd Monken, went down to Georgia, much like the devil, and also
I knew that was. I could see that one from 500 miles away.
that was on the spot, honestly.
Yeah.
But no, now he's up in Baltimore as the new offensive coordinator for the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson has been talking a lot about how excited he is that he's going to be doing much more passing than running. Fair or foul? Over 3,500 yards for Lamar Jackson this season.
I'll go fair on that. Now, again, the big caveat with that is also he stays healthy. I mean, I won't, but I could throw in there like, well, no, because he's not going to stay healthy the entire season. I personally, and I obviously when he's playing the Browns, I root against him. I like Lamar Jackson. I've always liked his story. I liked, him at Louisville and coming out, and I do think this season's going to be very fascinating for Baltimore because I don't think there's any doubt that Todd Monken's brought in there. They get rid of Greg Roman. Todd Monken's brought in there to, yes, throw the ball and get the ball downfield, and I think Lamar Jackson can do that. But, it seems like certain years, we've heard this a lot recently. Now, maybe it was wishful thinking because you still had Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator. So I think Todd Monken's going to back his words. But I will say this. You've got to keep Lamar Jackson healthy, but you also, one of the things that makes Lamar Jackson is that threat to run. So I'm not saying you're reckless with it, but it's kind of like the Jalen Hurts thing, right? Like, I love that everybody loved what Scott Steichen did in Philadelphia, which is why they're excited about having Steichen in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. It's the same thing with this. So a little bit different because Todd Monken's known for, throwing the ball downfield. but you still have to utilize that threat to run. And the Ravens still have, what they hope to be is a pretty good running game. J.K. Dobbins, who, Bohm, I know you think is the greatest running back to ever walk the planet Earth.
Travion Henderson. Chico.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he's right there. But, no, it will be – there are many, many storylines in our own division that are going to be fun to watch. Baltimore – because it wasn't that long ago we didn't know, man, what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson? Now he's throwing to OBJ. Now Todd Monken is calling the plays. Be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah,
Chico. That Ravens offense could potentially be very dangerous. I really love the rookie receiver they brought in too. I've seen stylistically. Now I'm not saying that he is him, but just from the little bit of watching him, the limited amount of watching him and reading up on him, I've seen him compared and looks like he plays stylistically similar to Tyreek Hill, super speedster on the field.
Well, if he's running a 4.1 or 4.2 40, then yeah, he's gonna be dangerous. Those guys
not quite 4.24, but it's low 4.3s.
Is he as fast as your boy Anthony Schwartz?
Actually, no.
I got a fair foul for you, Bohm. Fair foul. Anthony Schwartz will not be on the roster to start the season. He'll not make the 53. I'm
leaning fair, Chico. And
I know that pains you.
Yeah, I want to say foul. Look, I love a redemption story, okay? That's it's if he can get his hands together, if he could start catching balls,
yeah.
I feel like yeah, easier said than done, of course.
Right.
But if it's hard though, can you think of a receiver who started off that rough that has turned it around in your memory?
Well, yeah. Jerry Rice got off to a horrible start.
Did he?
But I guess I don't think Anthony Schwartz was that. This is what this goes back to. For those that don't know, the reason I'm bringing up Schwartz is a couple of years ago, you were so high on this guy. You thought he could be rookie of the year. And no, I'll let you talk. And you were just, sky high on him. And I'm like, boom, he's extremely raw. He's got blazing speed, which the good thing about blazing speed, you can't really teach that. You can get faster, but not Olympic style speed faster. But when he was in school at Auburn, he played close to the line of scrimmage. He didn't run. His route tree was extremely limited, which you argue with me on a couple years ago. You're like, yeah, but he can still run the routes. I'm like, you don't know that because he hasn't. And it's talked that is an area of concern. So the thing with him is, yeah, you got great speed, but all the other things that go along with that are not there. And that's where when you say, can he have a redemption story? Well, if you have the talent, yes. I don't know if he's got the talent to be a viable and every down wide receiver, close to every down wide receiver in the league. He can be a dangerous playmaker at times, a dangerous option, but he just doesn't route running, hands, intangibles. I don't think he has any of that.
Yeah, Chico, and I think also the other thing is he's coming into a really crowded receiver room here.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's already got to be digging himself out of the hole before the offseason even gets underway.
We're talking about the big topic recently has been with Cedric Tillman, and people are like, oh, Cedric Tillman probably not going to see much of the field unless there's an injury, and that's not because he could end up being great, and I think will be, but that could be more about in the future. I'm not saying he doesn't contribute this year, Cedric Tillman, but you may lose Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So if we're talking about Cedric Tillman, who I think has a ton more talent, no disrespect, not as much speed, but a ton more talent than Anthony Schwartz. If we're talking about Cedric Tillman, having a tough time seeing the field, and Anthony Schwartz is, I don't think he'll make the team. I hope, I don't like to see anybody fail, but he's had plenty of opportunities to prove it, and he's just, well, pardon the pun, he's dropped the ball.
Yeah, that was a good one, Chico.
Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Now, I also think with Elijah Moore coming in too, that would be taking away a lot of potential opportunities for Schwartz.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What?
Demetric Felton?
Schwartz? I'm not even thinking about Schwartz. Like I said, so many. You've had the Cedric Tillman thing about over under 40 receptions. Okay, let's do the math. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Marquise Goodwin they brought in, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marquise Goodwin. I already brought him up.
That's an important one.
David Njoku. I mean,
don't forget Marquise Goodwin, Chico.
And Marquise Goodwin. So 3 Marquise Goodwins.
Harrison Bryant.
Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't really. Is he still? Yeah, is he still with the Browns? Harrison Bryant? I don't even know.
All I know is he had a really good showing against Ohio State, and that put him on the map.
Well, I'm sure that'll go a long way for his Hall of Fame credentials.
That's all you need, Chico.
All right, we will take a final break. We come back, wrap it up. Game 5 in Beantown. Does Boston make this interesting? Okay, you got one. Can you get another? Can Joe Mazzulla and company pull this out? It is at the Garden between the Heat and the Celtics. Heat leading at 3-1. We'll touch on it when we come back and wrap things up. Chico Bormann Show. I almost said the Chico other show, the show from years ago, boom. Chico Bormann Show rolling along right here on the Big Play Network. All righty, winding things down on this Thursday. Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. Also streaming on Twitter at Chico Show CLE and on YouTube, the Chico Bormann Show. Hit the subscribe button and you will be all set to go. Bohm just asked me, he has his shirt on today, and he goes, congratulations for having your shirt on today. But he normally comes in bare-chested. He's got a shirt on today. He goes, hey, does the person on my shirt, does this look like Weird Al Yankovic? And I'm like, no, actually, it looks like Homie the Clown. Remember in Living Color? Homie, don't play that. Love that. Who is that on your shirt, Bob?
Jimi Hendrix.
That's what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. I was looking at it. It's like, kind of
Weird
looks like
Al.
Weird Al.
Who told? Oh,
The
you,
mustache.
you thought it looked like
Yeah,
Weird Al.
It's the mustache, Chico. It kind of looks like Weird Al.
A little bit surprised. Speaking of musical performers, lost another great one. Tina Turner passed away at the age of 83. I'm not joking. I put this out on Twitter yesterday. There are a few songs of hers I think are like some of my all-time favorites. Simply the Best. Although, I hope this guy's not now. He won't get back to him. There was a guy that I knew back when I was working in Pennsylvania, and every time a high school or college had like a great season, or if it culminated in a championship, he always played Simply the Best behind every single now, it's a great song to do that with, but you got to mix it up a little bit. So, like, every team that won something, Simply the Best was playing under their tribute, their tribute footage and all that. But Simply the Best, Private Dancer, absolutely love, probably my favorite. Typical Male, You Gotta Be Good to Me, better be good to me. You better be good to me. Proud Mary, not bad. I know a lot of people like that more. What do you have one? Would you say What's Love Got to Do with it?
Well, I mean, that's not my favorite Tina Turner, but honestly, I like Proud Mary a lot. And the one that I was singing to you in break that I don't know the actual title of, whatever, was I singing Proud Mary?
That is What's Love Got to Do with it.
Oh, whatever. I don't think it was, but whatever.
You
I
said-
asked you about What's Love Got to Do with it, and then I sang a different one.
Oh, yeah. You sang a different one. I don't know what that was. You were mumbling. You weren't very. You got to do better when you're. Come on, you're a rocker, Bohm.
Yeah, but I'm a guitarist, not a singer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I think was amazing about Tina Turner was the way that she transcended the gap between pop music and rock music. And, she was popular in both fields amongst musicians and fans alike. And I think that that's a testament to, when you see an artist that can kind of, I guess, just transcend one genre like that, I think it really speaks to how special they are and how talented they are as songwriters, as performers. And she had the total package. Like, she put on a show. She made great music.
She was great. Yeah.
Her delivery was one of a kind. She had a very unique voice.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it kind of reminded me of, like, when Bruce Springsteen first came on the scene. It was like, wow, that voice is it kind of reminded me like that. Like, she had that sort of, like, you had to
a little
stop.
raspiness to it.
Right. And I remember when they did the We Are the World, the USA for Africa, that video, whenever Bruce Springsteen sang his part or Tina did, because they both did it, like, you could see the other performers just kind of looking and smiling at him because it was just a different sound, but a great sound.
There's a soulfulness to it, a warmth.
Oh, boom. Right there. The cockles of my heart right now. All right, real quick before we get out of here. Game 5 in Boston. The winner moves on to the NBA Finals to take on Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I should say Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Although Murray has been huge.
Oh,
yeah. Will this go to a Game 6? Bohm, who you got? It's in the Garden. It's in Boston.
Chico, I think it's interesting, and I'm inclined to pick Miami still. I think they're going to put a nail in the coffin tonight, but watching Jimmy Butler, I didn't realize that he's like 33 years old.
Yeah.
I think that we're starting to see that, almost how like we're seeing LeBron get worn down. I think we're starting to see inklings of that with Jimmy Butler, and he's really had to put this team on his back a lot.
That's it right there in a nutshell.
Yeah,
Yep.
And you got to wonder, like, if they could just get through the series, which I expect them to, and as they should, you got to wonder how that's going to factor into a finals matchup with the Nugs.
Yeah, and sometimes you just wanted to say Nugs.
I did.
And sometimes, putting the team on your back or knowing you have to put the team on your back and kind of be the guy can be as much mental as it is physically draining. So, we'll see. I'm like you. I think Miami, I didn't think they would lose Game 4 because I just felt, Spoelstra's not going to let them, get ahead of themselves. But I think now he's got that, okay, you guys want to mess around, I think they come out and really, really, it's going to be tough. Great atmosphere, but I like the Heat, and they advance to take on Jokic, Murray, and the Denver Nuggets. All right, we are out of time for this Thursday. Thanks to Bill Landis, joined us from Rivals.com. Love talking to Bill. College football still a little ways away, but we had some things to clear up as far as the television contracts that were not, thanks to Kevin Warren, former commissioner. So we talked about that and a little Ohio State. He'll be joining me throughout the college football season for sure. But Bill Landis joined us. Coming up on tomorrow's show, had to move him back from today, Eric Casilius, CBSSports.com. Plenty to cover with him, and we'll do that again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And again, you can always stream the show each and every day, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3, on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, also on YouTube. Type in the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and you will be all set to go. Boom, great job as always. Didn't get too far off the rails. Did get a little giggly, but it's all right.
It happens.
Kept it in check. We will do it again tomorrow at 1. Until then, Folks, make it a great Thursday evening, everybody. See ya.